There is a silence deeper than death, colder than despair, more absolute than love. It is the silence of nothingness. And though humanity spends every century trying to avoid it, trying to deny it, trying to cover it with religions, ideologies, progress, and illusions, it remains. Nothingness does not care for your prayers, your projects, your ambitions, or your optimism. Nothingness waits, indifferent, unchanging, smiling. And if you dare to look at it without trembling, you will see what so few ever realize. That smile is freedom. But first, let us expose the prison you live in. Human beings are trapped between two poisons, hope and fear. Hope whispers promises of salvation, of better tomorrows, of eternal life. Fear chains you to dread, to the anxiety of loss, to the terror of death. Together they form the double leash that guides the herd, and every institution, religion, politics, corporations, even family, pulls these leashes to keep you obedient. They sell you hope to keep you moving forward, and they feed you fear to stop you from running away. This is the economy of your soul. Think of religion. Every creed begins with fear, the fear of hell, the fear of sin, the fear of divine wrath. Then it offers the antidote of hope, heaven, salvation, eternal reward. Obey, kneel, submit, and your fear will be soothed by hope. But the two are inseparable. Without fear, you would not crave salvation. Without hope, fear would crush you. Religion thrives by balancing both poisons in your veins, keeping you dependent on its promises. Politics works the same way. Leaders manufacture fear of enemies, of poverty, of collapse, then offer hope in the form of policies, slogans, saviors. Vote for me, obey my laws, sacrifice your freedom, and I will protect you from the terror I myself amplified. Fear creates obedience. Hope makes it sweet. And so the herd marches in circles, intoxicated by the illusion of safety. Even daily life is infected. Work, love, money, all are built on the same structure. You fear poverty, loneliness, insignificance. You hope for success, romance, recognition. And so you grind, you chase, you kneel. Fear lashes you from behind. Hope pulls you from the front. You are yoked between them like a beast, moving not by freedom, but by compulsion. And because you believe this is life, you never question it. But what if both poisons are lies? What if hope and fear are illusions, tools to enslave you? What if you could cut both leashes, step out of the circle, and face the nothingness directly? This is the heresy. No religion, no government, no system wants you to consider. Because if you no longer fear, you are not controlled. And if you no longer hope, you are not baited. You become untouchable, ungovernable, free. The first step is to see hope for what it really is, a postponement. Hope says, not now, but later. Not here, but elsewhere. Not you as you are, but you as you could be. It chains you to a future that never arrives. You are told to sacrifice today for tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Generations pass, each believing salvation is close, prosperity is near, justice is coming, but nothing changes. The hope machine only renews itself. To hope is to waste your life on a promise that dissolves the moment you reach for it. The second step is to see fear for what it is, a shadow. Fear is the projection of what has not yet happened. You fear loss, failure, humiliation, death. But all of these exist in imagination before they exist in reality. Fear enslaves you to ghosts. It makes you kneel before possibilities, not realities. And most of the horrors you dread never even occur. Fear is the tax you pay for illusions. Strip away both, and what remains? Nothingness. The raw, unfiltered emptiness of existence. For most, this is unbearable. They flee from it into distractions, pleasures, ideologies. But for the few who endure the gaze, nothingness ceases to be an enemy. It becomes space, openness, freedom. Nothingness cannot be hurt, cannot be betrayed, cannot be disappointed. Nothingness is invincible, and when you align yourself with it, so are you. Here lies the paradox. The more you embrace nothingness, the lighter you become. Without hope, you stop waiting. Without fear, you stop trembling. You live without the burden of what must come or what might come. You live here, now, in the raw clarity of existence. And though this may sound like despair, it is liberation. Because once you accept that nothingness smiles behind all illusions, you no longer need to chase or flee. You can finally rest. This is not nihilism in the shallow sense. This is not saying life is meaningless and collapsing into despair. This is not weakness. This is power. To live without hope or fear is to live without chains. It is to step outside the obedience machine that feeds on both. It is to exist without waiting for tomorrow, without trembling at death, without kneeling before promises. It is to face the void and smile back. But do not misunderstand, the herd will never follow you here. They need hope to endure their chains. They need fear to justify their obedience. They will call you dangerous, insane, even evil. They will say you corrupt morality, destroy faith, undermine society. And in a way you will. Because to live without hope or fear is to expose the foundations of every system built to control you. Your freedom will terrify them. Your smile will enrage them. They will cling tighter to their chains because you dared to walk away. And yet this is the only path to true strength. To stand without crutches, to breathe without illusions, to walk without maps. To say, I do not need tomorrow. I do not fear death. I do not wait for salvation. I am here, in nothingness, and I smile. So ask yourself, could you live without hope or fear, or would the silence of nothingness crush you? Comment below if you think the herd can ever embrace the void, or if this path is only for the few. Subscribe if you are ready to keep unmasking the poisons that rule your life. Share this with someone who still clings to hope, as if it were salvation, and watch them recoil when you suggest it is just another chain. Because nothingness waits for all of us. The only question is, will you face it in terror or will you learn to smile back? If Block 1 was about exposing the cage of hope and fear, Block 2 is about walking outside of it, into the open air of nothingness. It sounds terrifying. Most recoil because they have been trained to believe that without hope, life is despair, and without fear, life is chaos. But this is the herd's delusion. In truth, without hope or fear, life becomes lighter, sharper, more authentic. It becomes yours. To live without hope is not to live in despair. It is to live without waiting. Hope is always future tense. It tells you to postpone living until tomorrow, until you succeed, until you are saved, until the world changes. And so most people never live. They only wait. They wait for happiness, for meaning, for justice, for redemption. And then they die still waiting. To cut hope is to cut waiting. It is to stop leaning on a tomorrow that never arrives and to step fully into the present. Nothingness has no calendar. It does not whisper later. It only opens its arms and says, now. To live without fear is not to live recklessly. It is to live without trembling at shadows. Fear enslaves you to phantoms. You obey rules not because they are just, but because you fear punishment. You work not because it nourishes you, but because you fear poverty. You kneel not because you believe, but because you fear hell. Remove fear, and the whole edifice collapses. Suddenly, you act not because of chains, but because of choice. Nothingness does not threaten you. Death is nothingness itself, and once you accept it, you cannot be blackmailed by it. What can society do to one who smiles at death? And here lies the strength of the one who embraces nothingness. He becomes untouchable. Threats lose their power. Promises lose their bait. The herd is enslaved by what they dread and what they desire. But the one who has killed hope and fear is free of both. He no longer kneels for heaven. He no longer cowers before hell. He is not seduced by future paradise, nor crushed by future ruin. He lives outside the game. But this freedom has a price: solitude. The herd cannot follow you here. They will look at you with suspicion, with envy, with hatred. They will say you are cold, unfeeling, nihilistic. They will call you a destroyer of dreams, a corrupter of values. Why? Because your existence exposes their chains. They need hope to tolerate obedience. They need fear to justify submission. Without those poisons, their lives collapse. And so they must reject you to preserve themselves. If you embrace nothingness, expect exile. Yet in exile lies power. When you stand without hope or fear, you discover a new kind of sovereignty. You are no longer governed by promises or threats. You are no longer manipulated by illusions. You no longer need leaders, saviors, idols, or ideologies. You become your own center of gravity. You become the ruler of a kingdom no one can conquer, your own mind. This is the smile of nothingness, the calm certainty that no one can bribe or terrify you. This strength does not mean apathy. It does not mean inaction. On the contrary, it is the only foundation for genuine action. The herd acts out of hope for reward or fear of punishment. Their morality is a marketplace. They are good because they want heaven, or because they fear hell. They obey laws not because they are just, but because they dread consequences. Their virtue is contaminated by fear and hope. The one who embraces nothingness acts without those poisons. He acts because he chooses, because it expresses his will, because it is true to him, not because he is chasing or fleeing. That is real freedom. And yet most cannot bear it. They ask, without hope, why live? Without fear, why act? They do not see that the opposite is true. Only without hope or fear can you truly live and act. Hope makes you wait. Fear makes you cower. Strip them away, and you stand naked before existence, forced to create meaning in the void. That is terrifying, but it is also creation. It is the birth of strength. Consider how rulers, priests, and merchants have always used hope and fear to control you. They promise rewards to make you obey, and they threaten punishments to make you kneel. This is the essence of power, to trap you between hope and fear, to make you crave chains because they protect you from the very terrors they manufactured. To embrace nothingness is to step outside this trap. It is to say, I do not want your promises. I do not fear your threats. I see through the game. And when you do, you are free in a way that terrifies those still enslaved. This is why every society demonizes the figure who embraces nothingness. The Zen monk who smiles at death, the mystic who withdraws from the world, the philosopher who laughs at promises of heaven. They are seen as dangerous, corrupt, heretical, not because they harm anyone, but because they cannot be controlled. They are immune to the machine of hope and fear, and immunity is the greatest heresy of all. But immunity is possible for you too, not by adopting dogmas but by abandoning them, not by clinging to philosophies but by dissolving illusions. To walk into nothingness is not to lose meaning, but to create it, to stop waiting for it to be handed down from priests, rulers, or ideologies. Nothingness does not give you answers, it gives you silence. And in that silence, you are free to answer for yourself. So what does it mean to live this way, concretely? It means you do not waste your life waiting for a future. You work, love, act, not because of promises or threats, but because you choose to. It means you are not paralyzed by fear of death. Death is nothingness, and nothingness is already here. To fear it is to fear what you already are. It means you smile at illusions as they pass. Politicians selling futures, priests selling heavens, merchants selling lifestyles, and you say, no thank you. I already live in nothingness, and nothingness is enough. This is the radical calm of the one who has faced the void. He is not desperate for salvation. He is not trembling before doom. He walks through life with a strange serenity, a smile the herd cannot understand. They call him mad. They call him cold. But in truth, he is freer than they will ever be. Because he has nothing to lose, nothing to gain, nothing to fear, nothing to hope for. And in that nothing, everything becomes possible. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you cut both chains? If you stopped waiting for hope and stopped trembling at fear? Would you collapse, or would you finally stand? Comment below if you think the herd can ever live this way, or if this freedom is reserved for the few. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring the forbidden clarity that nothingness offers. Share this with someone who still kneels before hope or fear, and let them feel the ground shake when you suggest the void is smiling at them. Because nothingness does not need to promise or threaten. Nothingness just waits. And if you dare to live inside it, you will find what the herd never will. The smile that comes when chains break, when illusions die, when you finally stop kneeling. You have seen the prison. You have stepped outside the cage. Now you stand where very few ever dare to stand, before nothingness itself. And the question is not whether it exists. It always has, always will. But whether you can look at it without trembling. Whether you can meet its gaze and not collapse in despair. Whether you can see its silence and still smile. Because here lies the highest form of freedom. Not just to accept nothingness, but to love it. The herd cannot do this. They run from nothingness into religions, ideologies, distractions, addictions. They drown themselves in noise so they never hear the silence. They build monuments of hope so they never see the void. They kneel before fear so they never have to face death. And all the while, nothingness waits. The herd is not wrong to fear it. They cannot survive it. Their identities are built on illusions, and illusions cannot exist in emptiness. But you are not the herd. You are listening now, which means some part of you is already willing to face what others deny. To embrace nothingness is to step beyond human weakness. It is to strip off the masks of hope and fear and walk naked into the abyss. And when you do, you discover something the herd will never believe. The abyss is not hostile. It does not hate you. It does not judge you. It simply is. And in that pure being lies a strange kind of joy. Joy without hope. Joy without fear. Joy without promises. Without threats. Without illusions. A joy so alien to the herd that they cannot recognize it when they see it. They mistake it for madness. They call it nihilism. They think it is despair. But they are wrong. It is the smile of nothingness, the calm, unshakable serenity of one who no longer kneels before illusions. Do you understand what this means? It means death loses its terror. Death is nothingness, and nothingness is already your home. Why fear returning to what you already are? Why fear the silence that has always been behind your thoughts? To embrace nothingness is to be free from death, not because you live forever, but because you no longer need to. Eternity is irrelevant. Infinity is unnecessary. Nothingness is enough. It also means life gains a strange intensity. When you stop waiting for salvation, every moment matters. When you stop fearing loss, you stop clinging to what you have. When you stop chasing meaning, you start creating it. Life ceases to be a burden of expectations and becomes raw existence. Harsh, fleeting, but real. The smile of nothingness is not the denial of life, but its deepest embrace. Because only when you stop hoping for more and fearing less, do you finally live what is. And here lies the greatest heresy. When you embrace nothingness, you become untouchable to every system of control. Religion cannot seduce you with paradise. Politics cannot frighten you with catastrophe. Consumerism cannot bait you with futures. Even morality, that eternal leash, loses its grip because you no longer obey out of fear or hope. You act freely, not as a slave of illusions, but as a creator in the void. That is what terrifies the herd. Not that you destroy values, but that you build them without chains. But make no mistake, this path is not for the many. Most will never follow. They will cling to hope until their last breath, and they will cower in fear until their last thought. They need their chains, because without them, they would collapse. You cannot save them, you cannot persuade them. They do not want freedom, they want illusions, and so you must walk alone. But in that solitude, you will find strength no crowd can match. Because to embrace nothingness is to discover that solitude is not emptiness. It is space. It is the canvas on which you paint your life. It is the silence from which you speak your truth. It is the groundless ground on which you stand unshaken. And once you taste this, you will never again envy the herd's comforts. Their hopes will seem childish. Their fears will seem pathetic. Their chains will look like ornaments on corpses, and your smile will be the only rebellion you need. This smile is not arrogance. It is not contempt. It is the quiet recognition that you are free, that nothingness has stripped you of illusions, and what remains is invincible. When the herd mocks you, you smile. When rulers threaten you, you smile. When death approaches, you smile. Because you no longer belong to their game. You no longer kneel before their poisons. You no longer need their lies. This is the smile of nothingness, a calm that no promise can seduce, no threat can destroy, a freedom that no master can buy, no system can chain, a serenity that the herd cannot understand, but cannot take away. It is the mark of one who has faced the void and lived. So I ask you now, can you live this way? Can you let go of every hope and every fear and walk into the silence with a smile? Or will you cling like the herd to the chains that poison you? Comment below. Do you think the smile of nothingness is strength or madness? Subscribe if you are ready to keep tearing down the illusions that bind humanity. Share this with someone who still kneels before the twin idols of hope and fear, and watch how they react when you suggest they are enslaved by both. Because the truth is simple. Nothingness always wins. The herd fears it. The herd hides from it. But you can love it. And if you do, then for the first time in your life, you are free. That is the smile of nothingness, and it is waiting for you.